This is Jason Verney's podcast. I am Jason Verney. This is one of the couple of podcasts I do. I've currently got the Not So Korean podcast that I used to or sometimes co-host with Timothy Home. That's a podcast relating to South Korea, film, culture, important matters and loads of things. I also run the Micro Budget Filmmakers podcast because I'm a filmmaker and there's a collective that we have that are involved with that. And we interview various people from the world of filmmaking. I've also recently started, but this is nothing major. This is because I'm in Thailand. I'm sort of putting out some episodes relating to Thailand and just small snippets relating to Chiang Mai. But I will be doing on-the-fly episodes about Thailand. This particular one that you can find out there on audio and various platforms and even YouTube is called Chiang Mai Chatter. So I speak about all things Chiang Mai. This particular episode that you're listening to now, or perhaps watching on YouTube or wherever, is the F.L.I.C.K.S, Jason Verney's F.L.I.C.K.S podcast. And the reason it's called F.L.I.C.K.S is because it does film reviews. So that's the F, film reviews, movie reviews, life in general, when I'm traveling, when I'm sort of collaborating with people, when I'm exploring new cultures. Interviews, that's the I. The camera, because I do filmmaking, I'm a filmmaker, so that's the C, and K is for career, and S for sounds, and that's music. So it's F.L.I.C.K.S, and it's F.L.I.C.K.S. But in this episode, we're going to talk about quite a big film here in Thailand. As I say, I'm currently in Chiang Mai, and this film is trailers everywhere for this, and posters, and well, especially in the cinema, but you'd expect that in the cinema. I went to see this at Maya Mall in Chiang Mai. The film is Uranus 2324. So that's the planet Uranus 2324. Now, Thai people, it's a different pronunciation, I believe, but this is the title as I would read it as an English person. Now, the first thing to say about the title is Thai years are different to, let's say, much of the rest of the world, if not the rest of the world. We live in 2024, and Thai years, it's 2567. It's 2567 at the moment. And what I thought was interesting about that was that if you look at the date of 2324, from 2024, that's in the future. And if you're looking from the Thai calendar of 2567, the year 2324 is in the past, so it's kind of in the middle. Now, there could be explanation in the film. I'm not going to go too much into that, but I will go a lot about it. Is a kind of time jumping film, not time traveling, but time jumping, multiverse, parallel universe. This has been done a lot these days, not just in Hollywood. There was Everything Everywhere All at Once. That was a great film. I don't tend to watch the multiverse films that much, and the superhero ones and all that, but of course there's been some animation. Japan, there's been films there, and it's a big thing. But I went in this film solely based on the posters and the trailer and an article I read. I think it's Thailand's first space feature film. Funnily enough, I actually went to a venue last night here in Chiang Mai, which is called the Haven Playground, and they showed a really good short film based in space, and it was actually made for 1,000 baht. I think it was a student project, as the 4 short films I saw there were student films, I believe. And actually, I'm just going to plug that place, the Haven Playground. It's not too far from Taipei Gate in Chiang Mai, or Taipei Gate, sorry, and in the Chiang Mai area of Chiang Mai. And they're going to show films every evening, every day of the week apart from Sundays. That's the plan at the moment. So last night it was the opening night. My film, Reparation, is going to show there at some point. That's what we've discussed. And I might be giving sometime in the future, I might be giving some sort of talk or get to know the students at one of the universities in Chiang Mai, but that's another story. So back to Uranus 2324, we open in space. Well, okay, I'm not going to give too much away there, whether we open in space or elsewhere in the world, Thailand or USA. Partly because I can't remember the exact first scene, but partly because I want to speak about where it is set. And it's set in Thailand, but it's set in space, but it's also set, at times underwater. And there's so much I could really say about this, and I'm going to talk quite at length about this this whole setup. But I want to also just mention, first of all, the details. For example, the filmmaker and the actresses, because they were really good. But I'm going to leave actually sort of the actors, a bit more about the actors and a bit about the acting. There was some foreign actors in it, and I'm going to leave that to the end of this episode because it's kind of I don't want to go into that right now, but it's something I want to speak about at the end. So the film was directed by the Thai director, Thanadol Nualsuth. Yes, I'm reading this because my Thai is quite sort of basic, but I'm learning every day. Now the two main leads, the two females. Again, I didn't know much about this film, but it has been sold, or it has been talked about as being a lesbian love story of some kind. And so I realised that as the story developed. But excuse me if you hear any traffic. We are in Thailand. It can be noisy here. I'm in my recording space, but it's you might hear some background noise. So the two characters, one of the ladies is Kath. That's her. The character's name, Kath, and she is the one who's kind of interested in diving, and there's a certain sport or thing, diving, related to diving. And the other character, Lynn, who is more on the other end of the spectrum, in space, or going to space. It depends when you, because this film jumps around different times. She's the one related to going to space. Lynn, and Kath is related to, she is the character that's loves the water, basically. And I'm just going to mention, there seems to be a lot of talk or fans of the two actresses. I believe they've been in a couple of things together. One of them I think is called Gap, and one is something else. But they're known kind of as a collective, I suppose, or because they've been in a couple of films, they've got this fan base around them. And then, Becky and Freen, or Freen and Becky. Now, Becky is played by Rebecca. Yeah, there's a clue there. Rebecca Patricia Armstrong, or Rebecca Patricia Becky Armstrong. And as I say, Lynn is played by Freen, and it's Freen Sarocha Chankimha. So they're the two leads. And as I say, I'll go back more into the acting later on. But we are introduced, and I will say as well, it was interesting for me to find out that, Rebecca, she doesn't look immediately like a Thai person, but there are some, of course she's got facial features and certain parts of her face that seem Thai. She's actually British Thai, and so she's been on some things on Netflix as well, and I think the other actress might have been as well. But what I want to talk about now is the story, and really I don't like to give away things. If you ever read my website, Mini Movie, a lot of film reviews go on there. And I've recently, I'll just mention this, I've recently posted another podcast episode relating to a Thai film, a documentary, Breaking the Cycle, which is a political related film in Thailand. Really good documentary, Breaking the Cycle. But if you go to minimovie.com, you can then find the episode, and you can find some of my other reviews if you're interested. A lot of them are Korean related as well. So The film, as I say, Uranus 2324, and there's the irony, the fact that it's 2024 now in our times in Thailand, 2567. I mean, that gives a clue, first of all, whichever country you're from, that it's going to be, it's jumping into some other time, or it's in the future, or is it in the past, or is it in both? So we kind of begin, as I mentioned earlier, I would say that there's space scenes in this film, but it's not the entirety. In fact, it's the minority of the film is in space. It opens at near to the start. We are in space, and we see Lynn's character, the one who's wants to be a space cadet. We also at some point introduced to I think it's an English or American actor, and I'll talk more about the acting at the end of the film, and a Japanese character. I'm not sure if they're played by Japanese, but it's a Japanese character, and that is quite an important factor. So it's kind of Thai Japanese or Japanese, but they're relating to a Thailand Japanese space program. That's what I think it said in the film. That's what the story was. That's why he's involved. And of course, Japan. Well, it's known that both of these places, maybe both of these countries, are involved with these things together. But it also later on in the film talks about Thailand and Japan. There's obviously. I mean, if you know the bridge over the River Kwai and what happened in Thailand and stuff that's happened between the two countries before, that comes into play later in the film, and I'm going to talk a bit about that. But it's quite sort of strange as well, because I do a lot of stuff with Korean related things, hence the Not So Korean podcast, and there's a lot of history and colonialism from when the Japanese colonized Korea. And there is talk in this film about Thailand never being colonized, and it plays a part with this Japanese element, which I'm going to go into. But we see that at the start, but we also see the other character quite near the beginning of the film. So this character, as I say, is Kath, played by the British Thai, sorry. She's actually in USA with her I was going to say Korean, with her Thai mother. So it doesn't begin, or at least a lot of the early scenes they're quite brief really, but they're in America, or they're set in America, North America, and so it's something that's it's not automatically straight away all in Thailand or all in space. It's kind of it touches different things due to different things that happened in their family, and perhaps it sort of gives a reason for the British Thai actress side of the side of Patricia, Becky, let's just call her Becky, playing Kath, to use her English as well as her Thai. So there is a lot of English. In fact, there was so much English at the beginning that it was quite a while before it even went into Thai. Now it was a Thai screening, English subtitles and Thai subtitles. So throughout those lines of dialogue, which there's quite a lot, you've got the dual dialogue, subtitles. But I'll talk about the acting at the end, as I mentioned a couple of times. But I could relate to that, because when I've done my reparation film, I've actually sort of had English throughout, even when the characters speak English, and some of that helps when you've got accents and pronunciations. And also I've got a version of my film Reparation that has Korean, so I could whatever qualms I have or things that I wasn't too that I didn't think that great, which I'll talk about later, I can completely sympathise with the filmmakers. So it starts off in the USA, but also in space, and some of it's watched on TV ultimately. There's also, and this is quite a big thing, and it's the melodrama part of the film, and maybe tear-jerking at times. You've got the father of one of these two characters who is ultimately going to pass away, and because we start jumping between times, it gets really confusing, or at least for me. Some other people might not have found it that confusing. But I will say I've watched just one review briefly before recording this, or after seeing this film. I think it's a Thai person. They record a Thai review and also an English review. And they were saying the editing was very messy. Now, I don't think it was messy, but it might be messy in the fact that it confuses you. So that is maybe. And they also mentioned that the effects were not bad, but the effects were maybe look unfinished at times. And I was trying to work out, is that CGI? Well, clearly it wasn't in space. The underwater scenes were much more real, understandably, but the scenes with the rockets taken off or in space itself, they did seem like, if it wasn't CGI, it could have been elements of AI, because things are manipulated. But it worked, it wasn't. And I was actually watching, knowing that this is Thailand's first sort of space film or with heavy elements of space. I knew that the budget, it's the first. Whether they've got the capabilities, they're very good filmmakers, but you kind of do think, you're looking out for things. And you're thinking, how did they do that? Did they do this spaceship scene? Inside the air, the pressurized unit. Did they do it in one of those machines that can actually simulate weightlessness and all that, or did they just do it by kind of moving lightly, bouncing up and down, maybe on strings? But I'll let you guys watch it, and if you haven't already, and you can be the judge of that, or just watch it, enjoy it for what it is, and don't criticize it or don't praise it. So it's really interesting. It flips between times, and it's so the characters. We go not only between times and these people, these two ladies, Kath and Lynn, meeting, but then they kind of say, "But I'm meeting you for the first time, but no, I know you." And there's a lot of what can I say? There's a lot of sort of remembering and not remembering, but not only that. There's scenes where the character knows already what's happened because she has experienced those earlier years. I mean, for example, we go back 20 years from the date, from the Thai date, let's say 2567, this year's year. We go back 20 years, and then I think we might go forward a little bit and then back more, and present day. And for me it's a bit confusing, but I loved all that real time. I actually loved the fact that there wasn't much set in space. There was elements throughout, of course, but I would say it's bookended, as that expression. It's bookended with the space part quite a lot, and the beginning and the end. And so the rest of it is in Thailand. I think it might have been in Bangkok. It might have been in Talat Noi, the Chinese Thai area, because it felt like that, and I think there might have been even some things spoken about that. So we have a lot of this flitting between times and emotions, and as I say, it's a lesbian love story, but there's strong kissing scenes and a scene with some ice cream. And I did wonder at the beginning whether it was a female director, male director, whether it was a straight, or lesbian or gay director or whatever. And it was done well in those scenes. And as I say, that those two actresses in real life have this fan following. And so I think there's been some good reviews about this film already. And I mean, as I say, there's a bit that relates to about. It's a long film. It's 2.5 hours, but about an hour and a half into it, we suddenly go out of sort of the settings that we're used to. So even during these times when we're kind of going backwards and forwards, fast forwarding, rewinding, back into the lives of these two people, or their lives, and then one of them comes into their life. We're in the same setting. We're familiar. It's on Earth, I mean, fair enough, it's occasionally in space, especially later on and at the very beginning, but we're used to, you know, whether it's in the USA or Thailand, where most of it probably is Thailand, where it's not really, it takes a really big jump, an hour and a half through, and we go to the period in the 1940s when, so technically these characters wouldn't even be in their lifetime. So these are young ladies, these are girls, these are women. So they clearly wouldn't have been around 80 years ago. They wouldn't have been around 30 years ago, really. So, but we're suddenly in this forest, I think, and there's Japanese everywhere, and they're after one of the characters. Oh, she's embroiled in this situation, and this is the strange. Well, it's not strange, but this is where this Japanese Thai sort of reference and non-colonialism, non-colonized but Japanese colonialism comes in, and what happens is the Japanese are, you know, seems that they're taking over Thailand, or at least that's what I could see. But it harks back to the Japanese, you know, that time. But also, because this is multiverse, parallel universe, it goes, there's sort of stories on news channels or radio stations, I can't remember right now, where instead of the news being that the USA bombed Hiroshima twice, it's actually the Japanese have bombed New York twice. So we've got a whole parallel universe thing of that. It says at one point as a news story, they bombed them twice in August 1945. It even gives them more specific dates, I think. So, as I say, it's, you know, parallel universe, multiverse, but time jumping. So anything goes, really. That's the thing about this kind of film. It's like a lot of sci-fi or horror films. Anything goes. You can change things, as you know, whenever you want. But that was an hour and a half in, so we still had an hour left. But there was a significant chunk of that film was set in that period, or that made-up period. So yeah, and that goes on. Those scenes are very good, actually, you know. And as I say, I think it's the beginning I had problems with, but again, that comes down to not so much the actors or the Thai actors, maybe the non-Thais, and I'm going to speak later, as I said, about that, as I said. But also the sort of shonkiness of certain things or accents and what have you. But these scenes in the Japanese colonial period, and I'm not even a big fan of war films or period settings from that time. You know, I sort of switch off, but I thought this was very well done. And we had these two actors doing very well, especially Becky. Well, no, Freen is just as good. And there's another female character in this as well, sort of I think it's related to family. But what I also thought during this film, or just after, as I said, one is in space, one is underwater. So one is over the moon, or, you know, up there, and one is under the water. But what I thought was, how far, and this is obviously intention, how far can you be? And there is a line that's in the trailer, I think, but there's maybe referencing that they're not, you know, maybe near and far. I can't remember. I'm gonna rewatch the trailer in a second just to recap a few moments that I might have forgotten. And I'll just sort of do a commentary on certain aspects. I remember there being lots of drone shots in this film. And you know, for the on land sort of Thai, you know, the Thai everyday life scenes, or going across the bridge and on a bicycle or walking, I can't remember what it was, motorbike, and drone scenes. But as I say, the worlds apart thing, of course, that is, you know, that's an analogy. That's a reference already to something different. But I also thought, in this day and age where two lesbian or gay people want to be together in some cultural settings, And not Thailand, really, not as much, because they've just passed the same-sex marriage bill for a start. But other societies, and even where I'm from, it's still, even that, I thought, it's still worlds apart. The views of being together with wanting to be together with someone of the same sex, and maybe people's understanding. I felt like it's almost describing that the distance apart from some people's beliefs, some people's mindsets, or people set in their ways. Some people are living that far away that they're underwater, submerged, and up in space, that far apart where you can't go any further. That's how different people's lives are. They're in love, they're not heterosexuals, and the heterosexuals, maybe they just can't get their head around it, and so they're the ones drowning, and the others are way ahead of things, or either way, or people struggling in those countries where it's not acceptable. Those people, let's say a couple of lesbians in a country which doesn't agree with what they're doing, their love, their relationship, they're the ones drowning in their own anxiety and depression that people won't accept them. Those people who won't accept them are so high above, up in the not only clouds but up in space, and basically as far away from these people's lives as they could be. And there's a generational thing there as well, I'm sure. I just feel like society being sort of worlds apart, it was something that I found very, well, it's almost abstract. So I'm just going to play something here. I'm not actually going to play it so you hear it, but I was just talking about these scenes. I'm watching the trailer here. We've got the ice cream scenes. They're talking about keeping their hearts close, I think, and there's use of digital old cameras, sort of the old classic cameras before digital. One of them wants to explore space. I'm literally just kind of doing commentary on the trailer here, because if you've seen the trailer, you'll know this. And there's talk of star patterns in the sky. There's those scenes that I mentioned in space of NASA, and the so-called unfinished effects that one reviewer mentioned, and Houston and America, and literally just reading on from this now. But I'm going to now, that's my little overview of the film, and there is a lot of scenes actually of the the free diving, they call it, the underwater diving. There's a lot of scenes, I think it's the actress doing that, and there's some commentators at the start of the film who are, they're basically commentating, as I am right now, on the people that are diving, and it's kind of a contest. It's like Asia 2024 diving thing, I think, or something like that. And here in the trailer right now, as I'm playing it still in the background here, you've got that sort of Second World War, Japanese, Thai parallel universe, and the British Empire is mentioned, and as I say, there is one moment, well, I didn't say, but I referred to it. There was one moment where one of the characters, I think it's Kath, might be Lynn, but Kath, I think, has said that, look, Thailand hasn't been colonised. There's another thing that she mentions. Again, I don't want to even tell you what is in the film too much. I want you to see it for yourself, and you just and there's a bit here, it says I will follow and I will find you. So enough of that. The acting and the actors. Now, as I say, there was a few less than a handful of non-Thai actors, I suppose, main ones. I mean, there might have been extras that weren't Thai, and I watched a lot of non-English films, not as many as a lot of other people, but I've watched a lot of Korean films, and when you get an English-speaking actor, so a non-Korean speaking, and I know this from directing my own 30-minute drama, which has Korean and English speaking from Koreans. You've got to, it's not easy. It's not easy to get people that can act in two different languages and two different cultures, and different meanings. You can't, some sentences, lots of sentences in Korean or Thai don't translate directly to English. They don't have an exact meaning. They have a vague similar meaning maybe, or we have like phrases that we would never use, or sort of things that in our culture they mean something, but they don't mean a lot in another culture or another country. So these actors, it felt like even a few of those, the white guy, let's call the white guy the Furlang or foreigner, some of his lines looked like they were not dubbed, but they were slightly out of sync, and I don't know whether they re-recorded them or whether it was just me noticing that particular actor. And these scenes are mostly when they're in space. And I just thought, well, again, I'm not criticising it because it's difficult, it's really difficult to do that. But because a lot of this was at the start of the film, I did find it a little bit difficult to get through. Now, Thai people watching it who are used to, again, you see, if you're making a film and you're Korean and you're making a Korean film and you've got an English actor or American actor, you might think they're amazing. I would watch a Korean actor and I can't always tell if they're a bad actor or not, because we've got the different cultures and the different body language and everything. And this brings me on to the Thai actresses. Now, they're really good, but again, because I'm watching it as a foreigner, they're speaking in English quite a lot at the beginning of the film. I say they, actually, it was one of the characters and one of the actresses, and it did feel a bit not as natural as it should have been. But as I say, Thai people, viewers, who they might not notice that anyway. So this is designed for Thais. This film, this is a Thai film. But I really love it when Thai films do get to other countries and the recognition. That's great. Same with Korea, really. So I found it, but I as I say, 5 years ago or something, I might have been a bit harsh on these things, these situations, or the director or the actors. But I've worked with actors who did a really good job. But you've got to get to the point where you can deliver the lines in both languages and it feel natural. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. So I'm probably going to leave it at that. We've been talking now, or I've been talking now for about half an hour, a bit more, and I just wanted to do this while it's fresh in my mind. There was a couple of Japanese films I want to review, but it was several days ago now, a week or so ago, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do a review, but there was 2 films I saw one day after another. This is it. This is just my little review of Uranus 2324, and you can. I hope you check it out. You welcome to leave comments if you listen or watch this on YouTube. Seek out our other podcasts or my other podcasts, not the Not So Korean podcast. You can find it everywhere. The Micro Budget Filmmakers podcast, and if you really want to, you can see or listen to the Chiang Mai Chatter. They're just short episodes, me strolling around, speaking a bit about aspects of Chiang Mai, and there will be other elements of Thai culture podcasts to come, basically, in the future. Anyway, and that's it. I'm going to say thank you for listening and speak to you next time. Thank you.